Good afternoon. My name is Sifu Dave Charles with KAJUKENBO Napoli. I've got Senior Grandmaster Anthony Hemenes with me tonight and Sifu Michael Spiegal with me tonight. We wanted to take the time here to introduce him to the Ohana and, let you know his background and who he is, where he came from, that sort of thing. But first of all, let me say welcome there, Sifu Michael, to the Worldwide KAJUKENBO Federation. And
Thank you,
with
sir.
that, we'll turn it over to Senior Grandmaster Hemenes to say a few words.
Yeah, okay, glad you have me on your show today, and I'm glad to be on here with Sifu. Yeah, we want to bring up Michael to the he's with the Worldwide KAJUKENBO Federation, and we just promoted him to fifth degree, and so we kind of introduced him, and he's going to tell us a story. He's been in KAJUKENBO for a while under Wolf Hillsheim and Eugene Ray, if I said that right.
Yeah.
So, it'd be a good chance for everybody to meet him, and people know who he is already from the tournaments and stuff like that. But in our group and stuff like that, and some of the people out from different parts of the world can be able to meet him too. So, Sifu, you want to tell us your story?
Yeah, sure. So I am originally a New York transplant, so I currently live in Sacramento, California. I was born and raised in New York. I was born and raised in some very tough areas in New York. And got bullied. My home life was not the easiest. Learning how to defend myself it's a lifetime learning experience that started very early for me. So I started boxing when I was 12 years old at the Police Athletic League in New York, and I boxed as an amateur. And I started that in 1979. In 1983, I joined my first karate school. School was called American Combat Karate, ACK. I learned to throw I threw my first karate kick in 1983 as a white belt. In the American combat system that they had out there, our master was Master Richard Barathy. I'll ask you guys a question. I don't know if you guys would remember, but that might bring things into a little bit of perspective as far as my history. Do you guys remember watching on Johnny Carson in the early 1980s, a martial arts master breaking cement on fire on TV on Johnny Carson?
I think I remember that.
Doing a demonstration. Doing a demonstration on Johnny Carson. There was like 20 slabs of cement on fire. They had fire extinguishers. That's the school that I came from. It was a street fighting school. I went from there. I studied from an alumni from that school for years. I got my black belt, my first black belt I got in 1996. I studied very different disciplines, Kung Fu, karate, Aikido. There was also other requirements in my studies. I had to study and get certification. I got studied in certifications in herbology, I studied different practices, and this is going to be strange. It's just a strange background, but I studied different practices of Christianity, Wicca, Judaism, they were all required. So there's the arts, there's the martial, and there's the arts. And I always liked the preference of separating the two. The martial was about fighting. I felt about defending oneself. And then there was the arts, which to me, it was the thing that attracted me to the martial arts. The artistic part of it. I moved to California in 1995, and I joined my first KAJUKENBO school in 1999. I joined as a white belt. A funny story is that I had been working in the prison, and I had a friend, Eddie Mills, shout out to Eddie on that, who tried to get me to come to join his school. And I didn't want to join his school because I'd been kind of burnt out from doing what I was doing. And he kept telling me that there was a school in a church. And I didn't understand that at all. Why have a martial arts school in a church? You know, when you have like, Bible teachings about Jesus saying, turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
So after some time, I decided to go down there. I walk into this big giant sanctuary, which if people don't know what a sanctuary is, it's basically the main part of a church where people, sit and where the pastor is and everything. And it was a huge sanctuary. There must have been about 50 chairs that were folded and moved out of the way. And what I was looking at when I walked in, there was about maybe 30 pairs of people in sparring gear, and they were all fighting on the floor.
Yeah.
Stand up fighting on the floor. And it was like a mock war on the floor with Master Eugene Ray at the podium shouting instructions. And I thought it was so incredible. I was like, wow, this is really pretty crazy. So when that general part of the class ended, which we had, by the way, our school, we taught kids of all ages. We taught kids with special needs. We taught kids that had autism. We taught kids that had disabilities. We had a lot of kids that came across the street, came out from the street where we never met their parents. They would be going to our schools on Mondays and Thursdays, free tuition, never meeting their parents. Their parents would never even come to the school. So the funny story is that at the end of the initial class, there was the adult part of the class, which was basically getting training in and getting your work in. And I went down there with my gym bag and I put my old gear on, and I thought I knew my stuff, and I got my ass kicked.
That's KAJUKENBO.
I got my ass kicked pretty bad. I got beat up and I limped out of there. And at the time I was working at the prison, and I thought I could handle myself. And I had already been in a few tussles in prison where luckily the blood on my uniform was not mine. Luckily.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, I can't live like this. I cannot let this go. this is not right. I'm a black belt. I just walked into this place and I just got my ass kicked. Well, it turns out that we had about a half a dozen world champions in the point fighting circuit and in full contact that were members at that school, that were ranked at that school, that I had been, moving around with at that school. But to me, that was not an excuse. So I limped back into the school, and that's how I got started with KAJUKENBO. And I can tell you, over the years at that school, I cannot tell you how many people walked in thinking they were the limped out, and you never saw them again after that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I started in 1999, and I learned my first artistic form, which we call a pinyon in our KAJUKENBO system, in that year. And in the second year, I started competing in forms. Now, the important thing for me, forms was a big deal for me because it's a part of what the art is, as opposed to what like the martial is. The artistic part of the form, the flow of a form. It's
Sure.
something that is a part of that I watched on TV with Bruce Lee and the movies that inspired me to want to do martial arts to begin with. Even Bruce Lee's fight scenes to me were forms. They look like artistic forms. These sets of electrical speed-like moves, whether they were with weapons or without weapons, to me, it was like form. It was like art. And that's what inspired me. I would have never gone and thrown my first kick in 1983 if it wasn't for watching those movies.
Sure.
Yeah.
So with that said, I would go on to compete in tournaments. I would go on not only to learn the traditional, we had 12 base forms that we had to learn to be black belts in our KAJUKENBO system, plus an additional 2 forms, and 3 Gung Fu Chinese forms that we had to learn. So I learned those forms. I got my black belt in KAJUKENBO in 2004. And competed in the tournaments and gave from there. And that's basically that's the foundation of my story. I mean,
That's great. That's the first time that when I met you was at one tournament. It was the first time I met you. And then after, I felt that, I'm pretty good judging character. And I felt that you're a really good guy. We talked that night or whatever on the email or text, whatever. So I felt that, the sincerity, and you're actually a really, really good guy. And it's not very easy to find people like that.
Well, I'm going to give you some good news, and I'm going to give you some good news, some news that's going to be better news that I wish was good news now that is going to be better.
Okay.
I was so into what I was doing when I started KAJUKENBO in 1999 that everything that I learned, I wrote down move for move. So I have a book. I wrote my own book. It's not a book that's ever going to be on Amazon or anywhere. But I was so into what I was doing that from the first jab white belt learned technique jab to the very last technique at the end of brown belt, I have a book about 2 inches thick of typed stuff that I typed because I was so into what I was doing, especially even with the forms. And I wanted to remember what I was doing, and when I was teaching, if I couldn't quite remember something, I wanted to recall it. the funny thing now is that what I would like to get, what I would like to improve on is I would actually be able to improve on what I wrote and how I wrote it, because some of the stuff that I wrote, I try to reproduce what it is that I wrote, and I can't quite come. I'm coming up short in some areas, but I do have resources that will be at my disposal that I can help to remember. But I've got
Wow, it's impressive.
all of this. It's all typed out, and while I'm proud that I typed it out, I wish that I could recite it word for word.
Yeah.
So one of my goals, and this is a thing that's going to trump everything. I wish that my style was the art that I watched on TV.
Mhm.
And that I would love to start all over again. I would love to start from scratch all over again. Everything that I've learned, I take with me, take it with merit. Anything that I passed on to students, I would is of merit. But I would love to learn all over again, like relearn my style, like add new dynamics to my style. I know that you asked about my past, but in my future, I would actually like to add more aspects of Kung Fu and more moves that flow.
Sure.
Because of a lot of the style that we've learned, although the KAJUKENBO covers, it covers a base all across the board of the different ones, of the different styles. The base of our style in the KAJUKENBO system that we learned was the stand-up part of it. I would love to learn more of the Gung Fu and the Kung Fu parts of the art, and I'm hoping someday to run into somebody, in the KAJUKENBO system that I can pick some of that up from.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
that's where I started, was Kung Fu. I
Yeah.
started with Herbert Luke from Hawaii, and he was taught Kung Fu. And that's one thing I could say, the forms and stuff were beautiful. Beautiful.
Well, I got to say that, I started back in around, I want to say around 1983, and I trained under Sid Lopez. Sid Lopez and Senior Grandmaster Hemenes are pretty good friends. In fact, Sid lived with Senior Grandmaster for a while. Well, Sid Lopez was a lot more. In fact, the Lopez method of KAJUKENBO is we did a couple of the Chinese forms at Sulum 6, which is actually one of the Sulum forms from the Shaolin Temple, and then also did Sulum 9. Did another called Pak Sing Fuka, which I think was actually a Choi Lafoot form, I believe. We did all the Penyans. We did, so we did a lot of the KAJUKENBO stuff too, but he also modified a lot of the KAJUKENBO techniques to make a lot of them more Kung Fu-ish, so to speak. And I know that some of the people that learned from him still teach the same stuff that he taught when I learned from him. So, we could probably, I could probably share some of that stuff with you in the future here. I haven't done a lot of videos and stuff like that on my YouTube channel with the Kung Fu stuff on. I've been concentrating mainly on the Gaylord method stuff first, to get that, going together and everything. Yeah, I mean, and that's the cool thing about KAJUKENBO, and, what you just said about essentially about wanting like that, is it's one of those great outcomes. I think is that, you know, we continue to learn new things. We can continue to modify new things. We keep modify the old things, you know, to suit our needs in what we teach, you know, to our students and stuff. In fact, you know, KAJUKENBO is one of those styles that, you know, you're not necessarily, you know, so restricted to just basically parrot what you learned to your students, you know, because as life goes on and how things have gone on, especially since the 80s, you know, back in the early 80s, you didn't have MMA gyms everywhere. You didn't have the UFC out there to get kids all hot and bothered and into martial arts. And there's a lot more people out there that know how to fight now than there used to be, you know. So some of the things that you can do against just a normal, you know, normal person or even a street fighter of the, you know, of the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the year 2000, et cetera, you know, we kind of forced to evolve over time, you know, and I think one of the greatest things about KAJUKENBO is it does give you such a solid base, you know, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, I think a lot of the traditional techniques are still very important because it gives you that base to shoot from, you know, and then, you know, I guess once you get your black belt and whatnot and move on and you start to add things and make it more your own kind of thing, you know, and that sort of thing. But
myself and what I learned in the early 70s was Vargas and KAJUKENBO, all opinions, all the forums. And I had my studio for 40 years, you know, and then plus after that, I've been with all this other stuff. Never once have I changed one thing, not even a hair to hair to hair, whatever. Never once have I changed nothing. That great Grandmaster Gaylord, I was, you know, in class one, black belt class one day, but okay, we're gonna throw this as a brush block down. We're gonna just make a block like that. Okay, but when I go to my studio, I don't do that. I do it in black belt class because he asked us to do it. But in my studio, I teach the exact same thing I learned in the early 70s, and I never changed anything. So it doesn't get like washed up a little bit.
yeah,
And you can always take a technique and tweak it and make it better. Because there are some of the techniques that we did in when I learned back then, you would never use. It would kind of still like, you know, like punching a dag 9 A is just really silly. I would never do that, you know. And but I kept it the same because if I change it and later on this guy's gonna say, well, it was supposed to be like this, and this guy said, well, now it's like this. That's why I never have that problem. Now
yeah,
you can
Yeah.
in
Funny
the
thing is, yeah,
self-defense
I-
technique you can.
yeah,
what I wrote in here is what I think is the best way to go about doing things, and I would be afraid to change anything.
You don't want to change
Mine.
anything.
yeah.
I would be
Well, it's
afraid
funny
to change
because then
anything, and
people,
I would want to learn new stuff.
yeah. Well, people see you make videos on YouTube and then they say, "Oh, your uke had the wrong foot forward. Everything we do in our method has the right foot forward or the left foot forward, whatever."
Yeah.
And
Well, this is kind of a funny story. Great Grandmaster Gaylord, we used to do black belt class once a month. Well, you know, he's older. I mean, trust me, I know how it is because I'm doing the same thing sometimes. You forget little things, you know. So one day he's like, okay, we're going to do Pinion 7. That's how he talks to it. I said, okay. And he's doing it. And so he goes, everybody to follow along. So he's doing it. And all of a sudden he goes off doing something different. What the hell, you know, what the hell he's doing, right? It was so funny because, you know, of course, no one's going to say, no, Professor, that's wrong. Or Great Grandmaster, that's wrong. So I remember me and Jim Morris just turned and looked at each other, and we kind of shrugged our shoulders. And we're like, okay. So we just kind of followed along through the whole thing. But it was just funny because he's just going away, and pretty soon we're like, what the hell is he doing? Ain't Pinion 7, you know. But you know, it just, he gets older, you know, you always, you know, you never correct a teacher in front of anybody. So it was just a funny story because if you just seen the look on me and Jim Morris's face at the same time, we looked at each other. We just shrugged our shoulders and we'll go, okay. It was kind of, you know, it was kind of nice, cool story.
yeah. So it is what it is. Well, I think
Yeah.
we've been on here for a bit here, so we should probably wrap this up here sometime soon.
Sure. Any final thoughts, Michael?
No, it's just an honor to have been promoted, and it's an honor to have met the gentleman today that I've been talking to, and
Yeah. Yeah.
thankful to be here.
Yeah. Make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel too, because he's got a lot of good videos, a lot of good shorts out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got a lot of the requirements on my my channel, so
Oh, okay.
you want to take
And he's kind of like me. We tell it the way it is. We don't sugarcoat things. Well, let me tell you, I came out of retirement after 23 years because what's his name? I don't know what's his name. He got me to go to the. He goes, "Come on, kid, come out, fight in the Grandmaster division." Da, 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 da. I said, "Oh no, no, oh come on, come on! I already told you you're gonna be out there." So people started calling me, "Oh, you're gonna be there. You're gonna be there." I said, "Okay." So then up here, I couldn't get anybody to spar with. I made phone calls up here. I made people in Reno. Oh no, you're out of our league. You know, I go, no, I just want to jump around a little bit. So then I turned and made a joke out of it. And you've never seen the videos though, but so instead of training, I was at the casino laying in the jacuzzi going, okay, I'm just training right now. I was trying to make a joke out of the whole thing, right? And so then that it happened to fall that day. We fought. My cousin had passed away, and I was a pallbearer, so I had to go all the way to San Leandro in Hayward, do the funeral thing, carry her, and straight to that tournament, take off my suit and put my uniform on after 23 years when we fought.
Yeah.
That was the day, yeah. So it was kind of, you know.
That was an unbelievable honor because nobody would move with you, and I was invited. I was given and I was a third degree, and there was a vacancy, and it was such an honor. It was an honor for me, and I was just like, I jumped up. I'm like, oh yes, please. Boy, what was I thinking?
Yeah,
it was fun though. It was fun. It was an honor. It was definitely out of my league. Definitely way out of my league. But it was definitely an honor, and it did go the distance, and I did finish on one leg, standing on one leg. And
sorry about the sweep. Yeah, you know, but it was a fun, interesting day after 23 years being in the ring, you know.
Yeah.
But it was an honor, and I see how it worked out. This is what I'm talking about. When things are meant to be. If I would have ever fought that day, we probably would have never met that way. You see, I said we kind of fell into place later on down the line.
Yes.
Yeah. See?
And you got me involved in things and in some amazing things that I'll never forget. That you made me a part of.
Yeah,
that most third degree black belts would only dream of, and I am forever grateful and appreciative of those opportunities that you gave me as a friend. And you reached out to me, and you didn't have to do the things that you did, you know, that you offered. And I remember you waving me out from out in the stands. Come on down here.
Yeah.
You know, to help, you know, give a grandmaster, a grandmaster 9th degree.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just a kid in the stands. I'm not a kid, but I'm in the stands, and you're pointing to me, and the auditorium was full.
Yeah, it was.
It was packed, and I knew who you were pointing at.
Yeah.
And I came down, and you did things like that, and I'll forever be grateful for that. And obviously, that's obvious part of the reason why we're here.
Yes, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Dave.
All right. Well, I hope you know, I hope this video added some value to anybody that watched it, and we look forward to talking to you all soon. And thanks for watching. So
okay, night. See you guys later.